What's up, Bittersons? Time for another First Impressions with me, John from the Killer Bits, or your editor-in-chief for this episode. Yes, today we are taking a look at the Westport Independent, a game about censorship, corruption and newspapers. This is well, it's difficult to explain it. I suppose the closest kind of genre I can think of is it's a kind of a management sim. It was born out of a Ludum Dare game. I think it was LD29 back in 2014, and from the developers 0010, and they even said at the time that this was kind of not so much a homage, but carrying on from what Lucas Pope did with Papers, Please, and the theme at the time was Beneath the Surface. And this has developed since. It's, as I say, it's kind of a management sim. You are shuffling papers like in Papers, Please, but this time you are actually a newspaper editor. And we'll click and start. There was actually a alpha version of this last year, and it's had a few improvements, but it's kind of very much the same. It's kind of some small UI improvements and things like that, so there's not much difference there. Settings, I will say about settings straight off, the first bugbear I had with this is, as you can probably tell, the graphics options are fairly limited because it's kind of a very limited palette. It's a very simple look to it. It has got that kind of Papers, Please vibe about the way it's kind of presented. But I will say, if you're going to play this, shift these audio sliders around. The music you can hear in the background, initially it's cranked all the way up to the top. You want to bring that down to about here, and sound you do actually want to bump up because there is some narration in it, but the narration is classed as a sound, but it gets drowned out by other sounds which are classed as music, so there's some kind of balancing issues there. I will show you what I mean in a second. But yeah, if you're after advanced options, there aren't any. As you can see, it is a very, very simple look to it. It is kind of that kind of Papers, Please thing, but with a much more muted tone. It is kind of black and greys and this kind of sepia tone. There is no colour whatsoever. It's kind of trying to emulate that kind of 1940s feel. The setting is supposedly in kind of, not kind of specifically a kind of Eastern European country like, for the glory of Ostoska in Papers, Please, but it is supposed to be set in a kind of post-war totalitarian state. Now, this is where I'm talking about the audio settings are a little off. So, this is a work of fiction, names, characters, blah, blah, blah. Everything is coincidental. So when I first played this...
The following is an instructional film about the Public Culture Bill for all independent newspapers in Westport.
So that narration was kind of drowned out by the rattling sound of the projector. Now, the rattling sound of the projector is classed as music, and the narration is classed as sound. So that was a real bugbear I had with it. Whether they fixed that before release on the 21st, I'm not sure. But yeah, I will highlight that because that was quite kind of annoying. You can actually read all the text, but it is basically setting up the premise that you are the editor of this paper, and this bill is coming into effect, which will actually...
And do not print deceitful content that may glorify the acts of rebels or other criminals.
As you can see, it is kind of... this new bill will actually kind of push newspaper towards the glory of the state and quashing all rebellion and free thought and things like that. So it gives you the basic mechanics. Now, again, I keep mentioning Papers, Please because that is kind of the closest I can kind of find in kind of the style of game, because it is all mouse driven. It is drag and drop. and it's very focused on the mechanics and the mundane quality of the mechanics of, you are just pushing papers essentially. So this is our desk. We don't move away from our desk. We get occasional notes, stuff like, here we go. Dear editor, Phil has been putting up more loyalist propaganda in the office. I can't stand this shit, so I decided to pull it down. It should be on your desk together with this note, Frank. So that is kind of just to kind of give you an idea of the kind of the reporters in your newsroom and where their loyalties stand and things like that. So as you can see here are actually employees. So Phil, as we can see, Phil is very much a loyalist, whereas Frank is leaning more towards the rebellion. And obviously because of that, his loyalist suspicion, the actual state has got him kind of flagged as, a subversive. And then the other journalists are kind of fairly neutral. One's a bit more, swinging to the right. We've got a rebellion here as well. So, yeah, that kind of gives you an idea when you're kind of picking stories and things like that. So, the whole game is about censorship, and you get these stories in. You as the editor can actually change the headline, but you only have two choices. It's kind of the fairly mundane one, and then a bit more sensationalized one. And then you can also go through and pick out paragraphs and actually censor them. And then the idea is you push them over to your journalist to kind of report on. So, yeah, this part is about your employees. So it is very, very kind of basic mechanic type stuff. And as I say, the developers, 0010, a couple of guys from Sweden, I think their names are Pontus Lundin and Christian Brodel, if I've written it down right here. They did actually say they wanted to carry on those ideas that Lucas Pope kind of kickstarted with Papers, Please, of these, this mundane paper pushing kind of becoming very uncomfortable, where you have to kind of balance that fine line between doing what the state wants so you don't get in trouble and actually doing what you want and need. But unlike Papers, Please, this feels less personal. It's not you in the booth having to decide the fate of other people. I mean, there is kind of, in a sense, you have to decide the fate of other people because you are responsible for your reporters. Obviously, if you kind of push them into printing stories that are going to get them in trouble with the state, they may get carted off and all that kind of thing. Force down independent media outlets. So, as I said, it's less of a puzzle game in the sense of Papers, Please, and a bit more kind of management sim. What I've played so far, I don't feel like I'm ever in a rush, ever kind of under pressure in that. In between each of the week's publications, we do have this kind of like little cutscene where we can get to see the journalists talking amongst themselves. Supposedly, as you play through and the choices you make actually influences how the journalists see you and how they see one another. As we know, Phil and Frank are kind of at loggerheads because of their kind of political ideologies, but Julie and Anne kind of are, as I say, slightly more neutral. So, also where things have changed slightly from the Ludum Dare game and even the alpha last year, the time frame has also kind of increased, whereas I think it was like a 6-week playtime. Now we're on a 12-week deadline before this new bill passes, and essentially we get shut down as a paper, or if we're loyal, do we not get shut down? This is kind of a nice improvement on the alpha. It gives you a bit more information. there was I think it was the Loyalist and the people's political opinion. You've now got the popularity of the paper as well. But the UI has been improved where it's just kind of like a slide bar. We've actually got these kind of tabs, and it's a bit clearer, which is probably good considering kind of the lo-fi nature of the visual style. The kind of very 8-bit style makes some of the text hard to read, because I mean, if you can see that saying trusting, but it's not particularly clear text. So these sliders, you want them to go up or maybe not. Maybe you don't want to be suspected of being by the state that you're suspicious. But it is all a bit clearer now from the alpha, and there have been UI improvements. I mean, this is a bit more clear as well because we have got the popularity. There you go. Nothing more heartbreaking than misguided public. So yes, every week you will kind of get these notes through from either the government or your journalists or potentially the rebels. And the idea is you go through, you pick out these stories. So here we go. Wells Sterenson declares bankruptcy. 200 employees lose their jobs. Well, that's kind of very to the point kind of headline, but we can sensationalize it a bit. The large number of unemployed just got larger because of Wells. So there's that. And also, as you play, you have to take into account these different areas. These different areas have, it's probably not clear on this. Yeah, we can't do anything. But these different areas have particular interests. Some might want more crime stories. Others might want more kind of celebrity type stories. And they all have a different population as well. I think the Southern Docks is the largest population. It's like 300,000, whereas the northern suburbs is like 75,000. But the northern suburbs are very loyalist, whereas the Southern Docks are a bit more leaning towards the rebels. They're the working men and all that kind of thing. So you have to take that into account. Obviously, if you do more kind of stories geared towards the rebels down here, you'll get more sales and obviously more popularity, but you won't get very popular with the government. So management is very much balancing everything. Yeah, we know. But, so I mean, that is the main mechanics. As for how the game actually feels, I'm still undecided. As a concept, I like the idea. It's a difficult one to pitch. Like Papers, Please was. It's one of those you had to play and you either loved it or you hated it. And people did become addicted to Papers, Please because of the mundaneness of it. But I think where Papers, Please had the advantage was it did feel very personal. And there was a time limit. You had to get through as many people in a day as possible. Here I am. I'm just kind of perusing these stories. There doesn't feel like there's any urgency. The week won't pass until I actually kind of put all the stories in and things like that. So I don't have to kind of rush. And it doesn't feel like I'm kind of balancing what I need with these people that are trying to get into the country or all that kind of thing. It feels a bit, I don't know how to actually describe it. It doesn't feel like it's got as much heart as Papers, Please, which is sad to say, because as I said, as a concept, it's nice to see that kind of idea of you having to kind of tread that fine line between not working for the government, but working within the realms of what's possible with the government. That's kind of obviously suppressing the people and the media and that, and it's very, very relevant to to today's society. People are always saying big media is in the pocket of the government and things like that, and you do see that in kind of these slightly more radical countries and right-wing countries and all that kind of thing. So there is a relevance to it to today's society. but still, it just feels a little cold. And I mean, the developers did say when they were developing it, when they were going through the kind of the post-mortem of the Ludum Dare, they said these stories essentially are very kind of mundane. Well, not mundane, but there isn't kind of a lot of. This is really hard to kind of describe. There isn't a lot of heart in the stories and things like that. It's very kind of nebulous whether they're, you know, in favour of the government or the rebels, and it's very difficult to interpret them sometimes. But they purposely did that to kind of present a challenge. But depending on your kind of own political skew, you may just go through and go, well, I'm just going to lean towards the rebels all the time, and you will end up just going right, let everything through. So harsh economic crisis ensues as prices of food skyrockets. Yeah, it's, as I say, it doesn't feel like it's got the same kind of heart as Papers, Please, which is a shame. Unemployment rises, so that's kind of the very bland, you know, stating the facts type title. Unemployment has skyrocketed due to the last few years. Worst off inhabitants in the southern docks, where unemployment is around 43%. You know, if we were to lean towards the kind of the loyalist, the government side, we kind of maybe get rid of that. But if we wanted to kind of push towards maybe skewing the public's view towards the rebels, we'd do that. And there is the aspect, occasionally we can't give some stories to some journalists because, there we go, I cannot bring myself to write this article. Well, okay, we can give in, or we can get somebody who is more willing to write a story like that. No, Frank isn't, because he knows he's going to get in trouble. So there, as I say, it's a management sim essentially, and it's a fairly light management sim. Okay, let's pick some stories and put these through. So, government's new park leaves hundreds of people homeless. New park is planned for southern docks in preparation for next year's sports festival. The government will make room for the apartment by demolishing nearby apartment complexes. The apartments currently house 500 people. So if we go for a very bland one and we get rid of the fact that it's getting shot of 500 people, and then we give that to someone like Phil, yeah, that should go through. And we can actually, what's this one? Man attacks police officer, man defends teenager. So this is a bit more kind of, this is more leaning towards the rebels. So let's see if we can just pass this story through without any censorship. Okay, what can we change on that to get the story through, do you reckon? One teenager was caught writing rebel messages. Maybe if we just change the headline, will he do it then? Yeah. So it is very much that, but as I said, without that kind of time constraint of you have to get all these done within, you know, a set time, get your quota done by the end of the day type thing of Papers, Please. That lack of urgency doesn't help. If there was kind of a time limit on it, it would force you to kind of react a bit more. But this, you just kind of try various combinations. Unemployment rises. Let's shove that with Anne. But we can force her, and this is where the kind of level of comfort comes into it. If they're uncomfortable, they'll not do it, but if they're fairly comfortable, they're more likely to do a story. Yeah, we'll see if we can just get Julie to do that. Yeah, so there we go. So that's 4 stories that we're limited to that. So these are all kind of going to go by the by, and we can proceed to layout now. Again, this is another one where they've actually improved the UI slightly. Okay, maybe not. I thought we get the layout on the first week. We don't. It must be on the second week. Come on. these kind of load times as well. Well, not so much load times, it's just the slow passing of time. There we go. There we go. Southern Docks, they're leaning right towards the rebels now. But this is going to affect our suspicion probably. There we go. Look, our suspicion has shot up by 20%. But the people's political view is headed more towards the rebels. But we've lost popularity. So it is kind of doing stuff to kind of balance all that kind of thing. So here we go. These black envelopes are from the government. So what's the government have to... As you're probably aware by now, when you finally be able to stop notorious Northern heralds from spreading their lies. This is about the advertising. So obviously that's going to affect... The more popular we are, we're still going to have advertising. But because the government has been shutting down all these papers, it's also shutting down the advertising agencies and forcing some people to do stories. As you can see, one of your employees and has recently shown quite a rebellious attitude in her writing for your paper. So that means, and there you go, Loyalist suspicion has shot up and her comfort level is very low. So, you know, this week we'd have to give her kind of a softball story. What's this note? This is join the rebellion today, so this is a note from the rebels. And Frank's under suspicion by the government as well. So we can give Anna a softball article, as you can see here. That this is movie star writes biography. Yeah, that's a fluff piece, so that's not going to cause her any issues. I mean, we could go the other way. We could actually try and find one that... There you go. New law combat illegal workers. Government revokes employment for people from outside Westport. So that's more leaning to the Loyalist. Today Parliament passed a new law to combat rise of illegal immigration. So if we do that, this is leaning a bit more towards the government. So hopefully that will make her less suspicious. So that is where you kind of have to protect your journalists and, you know, make sure they don't get carted away by the man. But as I say, because it's not that kind of personal feel of it's you in the booth, and there's not that urgency, it's really not grabbing me like Papers, Please did, which, as I say, is a real shame. But as this is out very, very soon. It's out on 21st on PC and mobile, so you can pick it up on Android or iPhone, and I think Amazon Fire as well, possibly. But yeah, links will be down below as always, where you can find out more information. Once again, this is the Westport Independent, not the West Point Independent, as I've accidentally said to myself sometimes. Actually, we'll put some stories in and I can show you the layout before we go, actually. So, rebels assault paperboy. People fight back against censorship and lies. Let's force Phil to do this one, because he's not going to like it. Okay. People fight back. Yeah, okay, then we'll let Phil do that one. Protesters, Southern Docks. Let's see if Frank will do that one. 28 people arrested for... Yeah, everybody's not got a problem with that. Now this is a slight UI... This is a slight UI improvement on the alpha. We actually get to place the stories in, and we can select who gets the front page and all that kind of thing, and it affects kind of these kind of tabs. As I said, this is the different areas prefer celebrity stories or crime stories or society stories. So, but it doesn't feel like you're actually affecting much. So obviously none of these are celebrity stories, but they're very skewed towards crime and societal. So the Northern District likes industrial stories and celebrity stories. So this is going to be popular in the Western districts and... yeah, Western, Eastern and South, it will be popular. So let's only have a little bit of coverage there and we'll do a lot of coverage in these. Makes sense? There we go. Yeah, why not? Oh, we can maybe knock that down to 35 and we'll add up that to 5. So there we go. So Phil, how are you? You didn't show up for work yesterday. Oh yeah, bit preoccupied. John needed. So these kind of cutscenes don't really change a lot from what I've played so far. They seem to carry the story through of the journalists' private lives, but as I say, so far, you know, I'm about 5-6 weeks into it, and oh, there we go. Southern District is right with the rebels now. Eastern District is leaning that way, but our suspicion level's probably skyrocketed. Our popularity's grown, but our suspicion level is, yeah, on its way there. Oh, what's the government have to say? Has the last few weeks created content to free pay as disloyal? Jumping nest to nest. So Julie is in trouble. So yeah, her loyalist suspicion as well is up. So yeah, this is the game. As it stands at the moment, I'm in two minds about it. It's not really grabbing me, but as a concept, I think it could work. Whether it gets any small improvements before release, I'm not sure. Whether they add in kind of some sort of time limit, I do think that would affect, you know, how you kind of pick these stories and give it a bit more urgency. But at the moment, I'm kind of reserving judgment on this. But of course, you can make up your own minds. Hopefully this video has helped you out in maybe gaining some insight into what the editorial process is like. Maybe not. But if you do like the video, let us know what you think in the comments below, or you can get in touch with us on all the social medias at the Kilobits. And if you want to help us out, because we are a struggling journalist, if you want to help us out, you can do over on Patreon as well, at patreon.com/the Kilobits. Alright, until next time guys, I will catch you later. Bye!